I was going to be a rocket scientist. One of my primary school projects, in fact, was trying to make a mock-up of the atomic bomb. My name is Susan Liu. Most people call me Sue. I'm the Director of Orthopaedic Surgery here at the Alfred. The way things worked, I guess, always fascinated me, and so I was always, pulling things apart that I could get my hands on. After high school, and actually I blame it entirely on the school and their careers counselling, because they wanted their first woman in engineering, I shuffled off to Melbourne University Engineering, but only lasted one semester. Not because I didn't like it, but at 18, who really knows what you want to do? I was a country girl who'd come down to, the big smoke. I also had to earn some money to, to live. So I dropped out of engineering, went and waitressed, and then, I had this brilliant idea. Well, I had the marks to get into medicine, or so this is what everybody was telling me. So I ought to apply for medicine. I got into Monash, and I hated it. I thought, I can't drop out of a second degree, so I finished medicine. By the time I came to fourth year in pathology and patients, I began to like it a little more. And then as we got into sort of medicine and surgery, I rapidly decided that, I was probably a bit more hands-on, like on the surgical ward rounds. Something is broken, you can fix it, you've got a solution, it's very clear. What I thought was, what could I do every day? Well, I could easily fix a fractured neck or femur every day and feel satisfied about that, and so it was orthopaedics. I was probably about the fifth woman on the orthopaedic training program, but now we've got a lot more. It still needs to be encouraged. I'm not sure what's the advertised, and there's certainly a lot of that going on, because I think it's a great career. You just don't require brute force. For example, there was a shoulder that one of the male emergency departments couldn't get in. Now I know that a lot of people think that you have to either use the Hippocratic method, which is a foot in the axilla and pulling really hard on the arm, but there is actually a much gentler way to do it with a manoeuvre rather than with traction. And of course they've been pulling on this poor man for I don't know how long. He called me and he said, I can't get it in, and I said, well, I'll come down and pop it in, and he laughed at me. Of course that just made me mad. So what did I do? I went down and I was able to put it in without any additional pain relief, and they're the sorts of things you want to learn. You can do everything. You've just got to work smart.
Choosing this occupation, do you ever think, what have I gotten myself into? Oh,
you do this all the time, and I think it's actually important to do that. Just like you have happy and sad, and you need to be sad to actually feel happy. You actually need to sort of doubt yourself a bit to keep yourself on your toes and question, well, am I doing the right thing? If the answer is no, then, I think it's important to find out why that answer is no, because otherwise you're not going to sleep at night. And that's one of my favourite things as well, that, often you can just tell whether you're doing the right thing, whether you've made the right decision, and that whether you're behaving, how you should behave or how you think you should behave is, if you can sleep at night. Surgeons can sometimes be seen as, abrupt, rude, that sort of thing, because their primary focus is on the problem, at hand. And of course, when you think about it, that sort of career is going to attract that sort of person as well. And I think that's why medicine is such a great a great career, because it accommodates just so many different people, and we need so many different people. I got asked about sort of my most challenging patient, and this was a young 30-year-old guy who came off a motorbike. He slammed into the guardrail, and he actually had a fracture dislocation of his thoracic spine. And from what I could see on the x-ray, there was a spike of bone indenting the aorta. It was a bit difficult to see to see on the imaging whether it had actually perforated the aorta and was stopping it up, or whether it was just, you know, pushing against it. This was Sunday night at 9 o'clock. As these cases come in, when you're psychologically winding down for the week, even though you're sort of on call. And I remember looking at this at home and I thinking, you know, what am I going to do? When you're operating on some of these traumas, you do need to have that thinking time so that you can piece it together in your head. So I must have sat down for about, you know, a good 20-30 minutes just trying to, you know, figure it all out in my head. We certainly did semi-rehearse a plan of action, I guess, but anyway, to come to the end, he did unfortunately have a perforation of his aorta. Surgery went well. He remained neurologically intact. Must be a good 5 years, you know, down the track, and he's done well.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't you a motorbike fan?
So I started riding a motorbike when I was a medical student, and I would come down and park, you know, at the Prince Henry's nurses' quarters, which is where we used to live in those days, which meant I could bond with, you know, like all the bikies, which was just fantastic. I rode right up to the time until going overseas on fellowship. We both rode, my husband and I. So we sold our bikes. We came back, and I came back pregnant, so I wasn't going to buy a bike then. And then I saw one of the security guys flipping through a motorbike magazine. I suddenly thought, maybe I should get another bike before I get too old to do this. And so, yeah, so I did, and you know, that was fantastic. Until I had my bike accident where I got T-boned by a car coming out of a service centre. I still have a problem with my knee to this day. The bike was a write-off, but you know, it was a great advertisement for all the gear. It was probably one of the rare days I actually had every single piece of my protective gear on, and that absolutely saved me. I'm very solution focused. One of my favourite saying is that, you know, if somebody says, you know, I can't do something, or I say, well, that's, you know, narrow Western thinking, which is probably something that I can get away with, because sometimes you do have to think a bit outside the box to be a bit flexible. I think one thing you learn with age is that you do make the right decision virtually all the time. And most of the time, things always turn out for the best. I've been lucky that I've had lots of mentors, and you know, it can be a mentor in one sort of small area who may have just been sympathetic to that particular thought. And you know, usually these are people who, you know, I guess obviously had an enormous influence on my thinking, because, you know, from what I remember, nobody's ever told me what to do, but everybody's helped facilitate my thinking of what I should do.
What's your favourite part about your job?
It's about the people. They have such wonderful stories, and if you can, I guess, help them in some small way because of something you can offer, I mean, that's you know, it's an amazing thing. And I still, you know, get a little thrill if I can make the diagnosis in a particularly, you know, hard condition. And then, you know, it's sort of all logical to me, because if you can make a diagnosis, then you know what you can offer people. And then, you know, a lot of the time you can say, well, you know, this operation's got an 80% chance of, you know, helping you. And then if it does, I mean, you know, we all love a happy ending.